Life is kind of like a circle. In fact, Ecclesiastes 1 3 through 5 tells us, what do people gain from all of their hard work under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth lasts forever. And the sun rises and the sun sets, and then it rushes off to rise at the same place again. So we have right there, life is like a circle. In fact, there's a Roman philosopher named Seneca who actually says every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. And I think that's been the manifestation of what I've seen in my life this year. In January 2023, the Lord spoke to me, two simple words, begin again. And at the time, I really didn't know what he meant or if I wanted to necessarily start over because I was experiencing a year of firsts in 2023. I got my first boyfriend. I had my first apartment. I had my first real corporate job. I had my first six figures. I had my first real friendships with other women. I had so many wonderful and transformative things happening to me that year. And so what I thought God was saying at the beginning was that he was going to make this a season of consecutive firsts that was going to set me up for the next level in my life. But when we think about how God sets people up for the next level, it often doesn't come as a linear pattern or even a line of acceleration. It often comes with a lot of highs and lows because he has to get you to a place where you are ready to surrender everything to him so that he can exalt you in his time and in his way. So I had experienced this year of success and of wins, and it was truly what I thought was the peak of my life. The Jordan that I had imagined when I was like 6 or 7 years old, this was everything that she wanted. I had the wardrobe of my dreams. I had the life of my dreams. I really felt like I was getting to that place where I was starting to see life become what I'd always hoped it would be. But we know that the Bible tells us that God's ways are not our ways and his thoughts are not our thoughts. And so when he told me to begin again, I didn't realize at the time that God was actually giving me a divine invitation to start over again. And so let's go through what begin again actually means, because that's the first thing I did when he gave me this word. Begin means to start, initiate, or commence something. It implies the onset of an action or process. And again means another time, once more, anew. It implies repetition or a return to a previous state or action. And when put together, it really has its full meaning, which means to start something anew or to initiate a process or an action for another time, often after a pause or an interruption. Now, that's super important because my start over did come after a pause and interruption. Like I said, from January all the way to about September, life was great. In fact, I did everything that I wanted to do that I had on my bucket list. I got to travel every single month of that year, and I got to do it in style, okay? And for me, that was my dream life, this jet setter, fly girl lifestyle. But in September 2023, all of that came to an end. I lost my first job. I gave up my first apartment, and it matched the dream that God gave me in September of 2020 when he revealed to me that I would be in my childhood's bedroom, sitting across from my mother, and she said to me, I knew that this time in your life would come, so I saved money for you in a jar over there. Now, of course, I didn't want this dream to be made manifest, so I prayed against it. I put it in my back pocket, and I never thought of it again, or maybe I didn't want to think about it again. But sure enough, in September of 2023, all of those things began to unfold, and in November of 2023, I found myself in my childhood bedroom starting over again. At the beginning, when God first started to take everything away from me, I was almost tricked into believing God was mean. He didn't want to see me successful or happy. Everything that I had worked for amounted to nothing. And I almost believed the lie that this 23 years of my life were going to be better than any other year that I lived, and that everything that I could imagine for myself had already happened. Meaning there was no more life to look forward to. But I thank God for his faithfulness because it reminded me of the 10 years that I've spent in relationship with him, that his character and his essence is just too good, too faithful, too merciful to ever be anything other than perfect and just. And everything that he does for us is out of love, even disciplining us. So when I had to start over again in November 2023, it took some time, but I came to the realization that what God was actually doing for me was giving me a chance to start over again. And when I started over again this time, it was going to be the life that he planned and imagined for me. And so, of course, that came with a season, and it's coming with, I'm saying it as if I'm over it, but I'm actually in it, a season of purging, of restoration, and of completely undoing doing everything that I had learned when I was enjoying my life for what I wanted to be. And so I want to talk you guys through a couple of insights that I got as God took me through this process of beginning again. So like I said, beginning again is actually a divine invitation to start over. And that can be scary at first because some of us, we really accomplished some great things in our lives. We have what we think we want. And starting over just feels like unnecessary. It feels like a long process. It feels daunting. But it is truly God's grace that is giving us the opportunity to go back to the beginning and to become who He ordained us to be from the very beginning. So what I didn't say was, out of all of these amazing firsts that I had in 2023, I also suffered quite a few first blows. I had my first heartbreak from my first relationship. I lost my first best friend. I lost my first apartment. I lost my first job. I lost all of the things that I thought that I was gaining in that same year. And because I put so much emphasis and identity and stake into what I had accumulated, I had actually kind of lost my first love, which is Christ. So when I got the invitation to begin again, it was echoing through all of those the lost connection, the career shift, the first heartbreak. And it was like a whisper of hope for me that even when I got to the place where God began to show me myself and all of the things that I had messed up or the opportunities that I had missed through my arrogance and my pride that was actually rising up in me at that time because I was living high on life, I started to think, okay, is it too late for me? Did I miss you, God? Like, as the opportunity passed? Like I said, I really thought at 23 that the best years were already behind me. And it wasn't. It was actually inspiration. It was the whisper of hope when God said to begin again that would carry me through this next season of my life as He is restructuring and restarting everything so that I can build from the ground up again. Isaiah 43:19-20 says, "Behold, I do a new thing, and it springs forth now. Do you not perceive it?" And so, yes, beginning again is an invitation to start over, and that can be negative or positive to you, depending on where you are in life. But it's also an invitation for us to surrender everything to God. And that's where I found the most friction in this season, is that I didn't realize how many idols, how many things, how many people I was holding on to that I just simply would not give to God so that I could see with fresh eyes what He was doing. Like He says, do you not perceive it? And if we don't understand that when God gives us the invitation, the call of beginning again, and we're blinded by all of the things that we think that we're losing, is that we don't leave the space or the room for God to show us so much more and to show us ourselves, really. So the first thing He had to do was purge me, and He's still purging me even now. Like, the fact that I'm even on camera talking about this might be out of its season. I may look back on this video and realize there's so much more wisdom and understanding that's to come that I don't have just yet. But all I can do is talk about where I'm at right now. And that's, God had to show me that I had pride, I had arrogance. I dealt with a lot of spirits and influences that started to pull me away from Him more and more. So now what I understand is that in His mercy, because that's what that was, as I was losing everything, that was God's mercy and pulling me into this wilderness season where He could discipline me in private rather than having to humiliate me in public. One of the things that God showed me about myself is that I had pissed a lot of people off in the past. And I remember specifically when I did each of these events because I felt wrong. I felt like God had given me such an opportunity, and sometimes I would just blow it. When you start to experience so much success, you start to really feel yourself a little bit too much. And you can start treating other people who are being vessels of God by giving you that opportunity or that chance pretty poorly. I had to go back and acknowledge all of the people that I had wronged in different ways, whether that was not serving the opportunity that they had graciously given me, whether it was, just not responding to people's emails, treating other people like their time didn't matter, and that I was just so successful that some things were beneath me. And the truth is, God had always raised me to be a servant no matter where He put me. He always raised me to be very humble. And so the more success that I started to experience, the less and less I started to carry those attributes from Him with me. And so I had to go back and apologize to a lot of people publicly and privately. And that's the first thing that I think He'll have a lot of people do as they begin again, is to confront you, but also confront what you did to people while you were being your worst self. But this process of making amends with people and reconciling is actually a beautiful way to be able to start the journey again without having any bondage to the past or anything looming over your head. Because what can end up happening is, as God begins to take you to this new season where you're starting over again, is that the enemy might plant seeds of shame, saying, you remember how you treated this person? You remember how you treated this opportunity? You remember when God gave you the chance to do this and you didn't do it and you didn't do it right? It becomes something that holds you to the past. And God is saying, no, we're starting over. Release all of those things. And as you release them by taking this act of courage and faith, you show that you're really ready to leave behind the past and embrace a new path in life, one that's marked by wisdom and understanding and a renewed commitment to starting over. So we've kind of talked about the beginning again process, right? And the first thing is that it's an invitation to start over. But in that process, you got to first be purged. And I call that God showing you yourself. The second thing is acknowledging the past and maybe righting some wrong. But the third thing that happens in this season, which I don't think a lot of people talk about, is the fact that God still shows up as a kind, as a loving and compassionate father. And he gives us this spiritual space to go through this process, maybe not linearly, but in a way that reflects what we need day by day. And so some days you may have joy and some days you may be suffering and sad. Some days you might mourn and some days you might have gladness. Some days you got to go back and apologize to people and correct your mistakes. And then some days God may tell you to start over and do something completely different, right? But one thing that really does emerge from this season that God showed me in the last week of my life is that new beginnings also are an opportunity to embrace and to dare to dream again. If you had the chance to restart your life all the way over again, what path would you choose? I know for me, I would choose to probably say no to some of the dates that I've been on. I would probably choose to relentlessly pursue entrepreneurial pursuits instead of going to corporate. I may not have chosen a career path at all because that way I can be as flexible and creative and as agile as God needs me to do all of the cool things that I love and can do. I'd probably choose to be at play more than to seek endless toil and working so hard just to accomplish very little. And I'd probably seek wisdom with my whole life, like it depended on it, because it does. I'd also choose to revisit some of the dreams of my youth. And I think that's the most beautiful part about coming into the kingdom of God is that we are called to embrace the childlike spirit. Jesus himself says we can't enter the kingdom unless we become like little children. When you think about children and the childlike spirit, they're very adaptable. They're undeterred by failures. They're full of faith and they have hope in the impossible because we know that the impossible is made possible with God. And so accepting the call to begin again is like a gateway to go back to this childlike essence and to reimagine what life could be and maybe even what God already had planned from you from the beginning. When I think back to my childhood, I always tell people I had a million different career changes, like I'm sure everybody else did. But every 2 years, from 5 to 10 years old, I switched. When I was first asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said I wanted to be Catwoman. The second time, I wanted to be Beyonce. The third time, I wanted to be a fashion designer. The fourth time, I wanted to be an attorney. And the fifth time, I wanted to be a psychiatrist. Now, as you can see, it went from as creative and impossible as possible to then becoming something very practical and real, a real job. But somewhere in between, I lost the beauty of the fact that I thought that I could do all of those things. And that's continuously characterized most of my career, even when I found myself in corporate spaces or in these neat little boxes I tried to fit myself into, is that you couldn't kill the entrepreneurial spirit and you couldn't kill my ability to dream for more. And so the beautiful thing about this process was God gave me a chance to start over again and to revive all of that, but this time make it real, right? Because I found myself pursuing those jobs and the lifestyle that I had because it seemed possible. It was tangible. It was something that was symbols of success. But for me, success looks like being able to do whatever God wants me to do and wake up when I want to so that I can go and do it. And so now I can go back and start over. I can do all those entrepreneurial pursuits again. And I don't have to be tied down to a corporate job telling me when I need to do something, how I need to do it in order to make it happen. And this is not to shame corporate culture because I have my place there. I still love the corporate. I still love the business. But who I really am is who God created me to be. And I didn't realize that because I was losing myself in all of the life and the lifestyle that comes with it. In short, starting over often leads to rediscovery. I said rediscovery because you're not really coming up with something new. You're just revisiting what God had already put inside of you. The most beautiful thing about this journey has been the community that I have been able to create along the way. You'll find that a lot of people are starting over, especially in this season. And though it may not look as drastic as mine, like completely starting over, there are people who are starting over in their relationships and starting over in their pursuit of Christ. There's just so many ways that we can possibly start over careers, all of those things. But I posted on LinkedIn, on Instagram, it was kind of like one of the ways that God was able to knock down some barriers in me, because when I was younger, I had a huge fear of rejection and a fear of not pleasing people, I guess, or just people pleasing in general, or the fear of man, which turned into people pleasing. And I posted me at my lowest on all these platforms where people had consistently seen me win after win after win. And it was so humbling because it was a time where I thought that people would either mock me or say that God had, kind of just dropped me off to the side and this is what I deserved. Because again, I had pissed a couple people off as well. But I found a lot of people were receptive and they also embraced me, because people don't really want to hear only about your wins. They want to hear about what makes you human. They want to hear the stories that they can resonate with and understand. And so I am so grateful for all of the people who have kind of agreed to embark on this journey of beginning again with me. At first, it was just something that was personal to me, but I feel like God has really birthed a movement out of it. There are people who comment, we're beginning again, and I just think that is so special. And so I just wanted to make this video to encourage anyone, no matter where you are, whatever circumstances in life you find yourself in, that invitation is also available to you to begin again. And I believe that God is going to do something so wonderful, not just with my life, but with your life also. And I'm excited to walk with you as you walk with me in this process of beginning again. I'm Jordan Turner, and this is my channel, Made Manifest. Thank you for watching.